Hello and welcome to our second module on the entrepreneurial educator. Today's topic is awakening relevant purpose. I'm Paul Porter, professor in the School of Education here at Sonoma State University, and welcome.
I'm Mark Nelson, entrepreneur in residence at Sonoma State University, School of Business and Economics.
Okay. So we thought we'd start today with defining or talking a little bit about what is relevant purpose. What do we mean when we say awakening relevant purpose? Because for me, until we know inside of ourselves what is our purpose, what's our mission, some of the other parts of this whole series aren't going to mean a lot unless you've got that alignment inside yourself of knowing what you stand for, what your life is about. So that's what it is for me, and it's kind of a key to being an entrepreneurial educator and thinker. How about you, Mark?
Well, to me, relevant purpose is kind of a self-discovery process, and it's about alignment. But first and foremost, I think with young people, what we're trying to do, as we alluded to in the brief overview session, was try to do some self-discovery, try to find out really what makes people tick, and then create learning environments that allow those people to expand, explode, fertilize, cultivate, and then hopefully harvest. Because if people can really harness those internal passions, they will want to learn. And so part of it to me is unleashing, other parts is identifying, the other part is nurturing, and then I think finally we want to really create alignment between what's going on inside of a human being and what's the external reality. To me, that's what relevant purpose is all about.
What do you mean by external reality?
Well, it could be when you're younger, if you find yourself liking to collaborate and working in teams as much as playing, it could be playing a sport.
So what do you mean by alignment from within or with inside?
So I think everybody in this world has a unique purpose. I think that could be unique purposes. And part of our mission in our life is to do self-discovery, and as we progress in our lives, to identify those unique purposes and unique purpose. Now, once you've done that, what you want to try to do is to try to create alignment with the external realities of your life. What you're doing from a professional perspective, who you're hanging out with, who your friends are, what type of associations you are, what are your hobbies, again, how you're making a living, and consciously try to create an awareness about this internal world and your external world and try to bridge a gap and connect the dots. To me, that's what relevant purpose is about, creating alignment between that inner purpose and passion and the external reality.
That inner passion, it's not just about business or work. It could be the best parent you could be. What are some other examples?
It could be tending to a garden. It could be wanting to instruct people at Sonoma State University. I mean, I came in here out of a passion for wanting to help and be of service to the world. To me, that's critical, and this is a great tool. It's a great avenue to do that. I was fortunate in my prior life and actually in my existing life to do pretty well in the business world, and now I'm able to take some of those experiences, navigate into a new world, connect new dots, create new alignments so that I can be a better person and hopefully be a better service to people like you and to educators in the world and to myself and others.
If I love making the best comfort food in the world, or if I love, I don't know, coaching people, how do I align that with what's out there?
Well, and I think that's one of the things that we're going to need to distill over the course of time. But initially, my thinking is to try to break down passions and purposes into attributes. Frequently, when you're younger, you say, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be an actor, or I want to be a doctor. And what I would say is, okay, well, what are the attributes about being an actor or an actress that are exciting to you? Maybe it's being in front of others. Maybe it's getting emotional response to what you're doing. Maybe it's working in a team collaborative environment. Maybe it's part planning and part spontaneity. And then I would say to myself, well, you know what? Maybe that's also a salesperson. or something else. So as we break down these attributes, we create opportunities to connect our internal realities with our external lives. And by the way, our external lives. And by the way, it's not just about finance. It can be about, again, the hobbies we decide we're going to participate in, the associations and not-for-profits and philanthropic endeavors that we're going to participate in, the relationships that we're going to have with a myriad of people.
So it's more than just, I'm going to go out and survey the job market.
No, it's actually much more than that. And we'll talk about this later on. It's about trying to build a life portfolio so that you've got balance amongst all of these different elements in your life.
It seems to me that as you're doing this, you're going to have to keep, I think a term you use, reinventing yourself.
Oh my God. At no time in history, and we're going to hear about this from some of our educators in some of the clips that you're going to see over the course of this course, some of the sessions, and that is constantly reinventing yourself, understanding what the market demands, whatever market that is. It doesn't necessarily have to be for financial. It could be, I want to go do this from a not-for-profit perspective, and here's what I have to offer. It's about building these ongoing tools and experiences so that you have some level of relevance towards any directional area you may want to be going.
I think another thing we've talked about is, in this whole thinking process, money as a trap.
Oh, well, you know, as I alluded to in the prior session, so many people believe that you need to delineate between your inner purposes and passions and the external realities that you're trying to pursue. And so often we see people that are pursuing things, a profession, just for the money. And many people I know, in fact, I might even put myself into that category at one point in time in my career where I stayed in situations or I did things because the money was so good. Well, what happens is that over the course of time, you develop some levels of internal bankruptcy, maybe spiritual bankruptcy or intellectual bankruptcy. So again, you want to be looking at these things holistically and not just as it relates to, I want to do this to go make a whole bunch of money. Nothing wrong with making a whole bunch of money, by the way, at all. But you want to do it in a way that is creating an abundance internally, intrinsically, so that you're building wealth simultaneously as well as building external wealth.
This really reminds me of the work of Daniel Pink, who has written several books, and particularly his book on drive. He talks about in motivation there being three main keys to motivation, and one of those is purpose. And I have a quote from Pink, and Pink says, people who perform at high levels in the service of some greater objective can achieve even more. The most deeply motivated people, not to mention those who are most productive and satisfied, hitch their desires to a cause larger than themselves. So I think what Pink is saying is, if we really want to have productive workplaces, productive people, people who keep reaching their potential, they have to find the sense of purpose within themselves. It's the key to all the other steps, the key to mastery, the key to productivity, etc. I have one more quote here, a quote from McDonald's executive, also from Pink's book, from Matt Lederhausen. He says, I believe wholeheartedly that a new form of capitalism is emerging. More stakeholders want their businesses to have a purpose bigger than their product.
You know, Daniel Pink talks about some incredible things, and in one of his books he talks about the migration from being a left brain society to a right brain society, really a whole brain society, and really touches on a lot of the concepts in a different way that we're talking about here, which is basically being entrepreneurial, being creative, and using those things in totality to become a complete person. And when you talk about some of the quotes here related to service, you know, to me there's four things that people are really looking for related to relevance. First of all, one, they want to be individually viable and vital. Two, they want to continue a personal growth pattern, lifelong learning. They want to be, you know, relevant to themselves in a future time period. Three, they want to be relevant to others. You know, they want to be relevant to others in the world. And then finally, they want to be relevant to the world. They want to be, as this person stated, the McDonald's guy and Daniel Pink, of service to the world. That to me is absolutely critical. what you really need to understand is something that we've talked about called the river, and really the river is the world, and the world has circumstance. The world is an environment, and there are certain things that our world has, the river, that we have no control over. We don't have control over the ebbs and the tides and the flows and the levels and how chaotic a river can get at any point in time, or when it's serene. But what we do have control over is our oars, the vessel that we're developing in order to navigate that river. And in navigating that river, we have to understand when it may be time to row over to the side of the shore, take a look, map out where we want to go down the river, map out the course that we're going to take so that we don't capsize. We don't want to row upriver. You know, sometimes we want to hold back on the oars, other times we got to pedal hard. Same thing in life. And to me, a victim doesn't feel like they have oars in their hands. They just think the river is what it's going to be and they can't do anything about it. Well, it's a dance, right? I mean, the reality is that the world is a beautiful place, and if you look at everything as an obstacle, as if you're a victim, then you're not going to progress. In fact, I would argue that in this day and age, the greatest challenge it can bring is when obstacles are there, because then you get an opportunity to really test yourself. You get an opportunity to really dig deep inside, do some self-discovery. As you and I know, we've got a few laps around the track, right? And the times you fall, the times you suffer, the times you have a little pain are the greatest learning environments. And so to me, get in the river, understand that you got a vessel, and don't be a victim.
In psychology or in education, we often call that owning. When people, the difference between owning your own life, owning what you want, owning your own responsibility, versus waiting for someone else, blaming, externalizing, is I think kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and waking up every day and having a good attitude and saying, what challenge is going to be before me that I'm going to get a chance to overcome.
Yeah, you use a term too, setting your own agenda.
Well, I think you got to set your own agenda, and you got to set it in a realistic way. I think
that's the alignment piece.
The alignment, right? And when you set your own agenda, you don't feel powerless. But I think if you're smart, you set an agenda that is understanding that there's a purpose inside of you, there's a real world out there, and the agenda's got to be about trying to create alignment between those two things with the appropriate attitude. Again, not everything's an obstacle, but most things are an opportunity. And if it's too big of an obstacle, get out of the way of it.
Or flow with it.
Or flow with it.
I hope everyone out there gets the concept that this is about thinking differently. It's not
behaving
about
differently.
And behaving differently.
Yeah.
Not about just becoming an entrepreneur.
No, absolutely not.
And we want this movement to start early. We want this way of thinking to be taught in our schools much earlier, so it becomes more ingrained in the inquiry process, in risk-taking, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and I think, it's interesting, and we touched on this probably indirectly in the session, and that is, so frequently young people get defined by their environment at a very early age. I mean, people are asking them questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, you're extrovert or you're introvert, or you're an athlete or an artist, and blah, 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 blah. And the reality is you start pigeonholing kids' brains. And the reality is that what we want to do is we want them to define themselves. We want to create an environment, whether it's at home or in a school, and by the way, when it's in a workforce, where people can start defining themselves by utilizing the environment as a point of reflection, a mirror, also using it as a tool to develop, and to me, the educational system. You've got an attentive, hopefully attentive, audience every single day, 9 months, 10 months out of the year, with these young people. Let's make it fun for them. Let's let them do some exploring. Let's let them unleash their inner selves and make a difference in the world.